Our sailboat was beached, thrown up on the beach in an unforecasted cyclone here in Bimini, Bahamas. The fiberglass shell of the rudder was split and then completely lost when we towed off of the beach. We've secured a new rudder used off of CNC 39. It's here on deck, but we want to haul out to replace it. So our task is building a temporary rudder to bolt around what's left of the rudder shaft and reinforcement plate underneath the boat to get us to Nassau, Bahamas, about 100 miles away. So let me show you how we did it. So, thank you, Derek, and bringing me some 3/4 inch plywood. And we're up here on the dock and we're laying it out. We've got the original drawing of what the rudder was supposed to look like. The rudder stock is obviously not what's in the drawing, so this has been replaced before. So we got to build a plywood rudder to get us to Nassau. So let's get to cutting some plywood. Not perfect, but don't have to be. We're making the rudder out of 4 layers of plywood, 3/4, so that's actually 5 layers, because the shaft is 3 inches in diameter and we got to get around that. So we're putting a bevel on some of the inside pieces to kind of mold around the shaft a little bit and get a nice tight fit. This is the rudder we bought. This is off a CNC 39, hull number 35. It is the original CNC rudder that was replaced on that boat with the Rob Perry design. And this has been laying behind the guy's shed for 20 years, and he sold it to us. So, measuring this and comparing it with the drawings, I've confirmed it's the correct rudder. It's 2 7/8 shaft, and up here where I'm building the plywood rudder temporarily, I need something to simulate that shaft. So what I found is a can of coffee creamer, and I know photos perspective it looks big, but when I measure it, it's 2 7/8. So we'll use this to space the plywood to get the right distance, making the temporary rudder. You can see here where I've cut the layers of plywood with some tapers there to basically get me a round shape, and I can use this coffee creamer and slide it down the length of this to make sure I've got clearance for the rudder shaft. Remember, I got to install this underwater. So that's what I use for my spacings, and I'll bolt the top piece on, and that'll make sure I've got the right rudder shaft size. The stack of plywood's 5 3/4 inch sheets, so, or 6 3/4 inch sheets, so it comes out to about 5 inches. So I needed some 6-inch bolts. These are the only thing I could find on the island of Bimini. So I got to make these work. It really don't matter what size they are. These are 1/2 inch by 6 inch. Galvanized nuts. Flat washers. They're awful shiny. They actually may be stainless. I don't know. But it don't matter. It's temporary. But yeah, look at the price of this stuff. But I'm just glad that I was able to get them. 140 bucks for this. And this will be the back half of the rudder. And I've got some 1/4 inch bolts for the narrow end. So let's start drilling some holes and putting this together. One small issue is I got to put a square peg and a round hole for these flat washers, and it'll start, but it's a little bit tight. You can see where it goes in a little ways, so I'll touch those corners with a grinding wheel just so I can get the washer seated. All right, so let's just touch these corners down with a grinding wheel. That's probably enough. I'll turn it and I'll do all four sides and we'll check the fit. Okay, let's check the fit. Perfect, and it just took a little touch on each corner. And I had to go deep into my tool storage to get this drill kit out, but I'm gonna drill the holes 5/8 for these 1/2" bolts to give me a little wiggle room. Because remember, I got to bolt this together loosely, slide it over the shaft, and then tighten these up underwater. Okay, we got our shape right. Using the creamer can, we space our holes with the washer. Let's put some bolt holes in her. Our temporary plywood rudder is continually going through design iterations as I measure underneath and see what I got to fit and all. But I'm to the part where I got all the pieces and we're going to start screwing it together. Here's a collection of pieces. Basically, it's got to fit over that. And I got to bolt it tight. So I'm going to build it in 2 halves and have the bolts through it and then just tighten it up when I get it on. But I'm gonna put some screws in to hold the layers together, so while I'm underneath it I'll not have to fight it. I only have 2 halves. So let's get to screwing around. Using the bolts to keep everything lined up from our pre-drilled holes, screwing the second layer together. A little tighter. Okay, the rudder's in its final shape. Now we just got to put through bolts in. You can see I eliminated that center piece of plywood on the outside because I want the rudder to close easier, and tighten down bolts to close that gap to give it a more hydrodynamic profile. But I've got the full thickness over here to get around the 3-inch shaft. So I'll just scrap these pieces, and I think that's going to do it. Okay, all the 1/2" bolts are in. That's the rudder shape. Now we're going to drill a bunch of perimeter bolts in 1/4 inch to close that gap up there, and we'll be able to cut them off so they don't stick out. These are 5-inch bolts, but they're threaded the whole way. So let's get those installed. There she is, ready for installation. She'll slide right up over it from this end, and then we'll put these bolts in, clamp everything down around that frame. And some may say that's overkill, but I've got a 100-mile sail on open ocean to do, and failure is not an option.